Ariel Helwani in Las Vegas just prior to UFC 130, and look who we have run into. Strikeforce CEO Scott Coker. Great to see you at a UFC event. Is this your first one that you've ever attended in person?
No, I mean, come on. I've been a big fan for many years, and I went to Brock Lesnar fighting Randy Couture, and then I went to Randy versus Gonzaga, and then I've been to probably 20 or 30 over the last several years.
But first time since Strikeforce was purchased.
Yes, since the purchase. Mm-hmm.
Now, how is just curious? We like to know how you're doing. How has the transition been for you?
I mean, it's a transition that there's a lot of redundancy in our staff and their staff, and so there's some of it that's a little bit rough. But when I look at how they operate their business, I mean, it's pretty amazing. And you've been in the offices many times, I'm sure, and it's like it's a war room in there with 150 people focusing on one thing, and that's growing UFC and now growing Strikeforce. So it's a good thing.
You alluded to this. There were a lot of people who worked with you for a very long time. Was it hard to say goodbye to them?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, these guys are real close friends of mine, and and you know what? And it'll be fine because they're very talented individuals, and and they love the martial arts fight business, and they're going to be fine. But it is tough, and through any kind of merger or acquisitions, these type of things do happen, and it's just a matter of redundancy, and unfortunately, they have it's a tough thing for me personally, but the Fertittas have a business to run, and they have to maintain that business. So
you announced several big announcements today. The first one being, and the biggest one, Fedor versus Dan Henderson, July 30th, in just outside of Chicago, Sears Center. How hard was it to put that fight together, especially given the catch weight at 220 pounds?
Well, I tell you, anything with Fedor sometimes can be difficult, right? But a lot of that is just they're not here. You can't just pick up the phone, call them, and and they can come over, have a meeting with you face to face. I mean, it's a long distance thing, and then they have a language barrier, and you have to have a translator, and it's nice to say that it's done. So that's put behind us. So I don't have to worry about that anymore. But it was quite a little task to get this thing done.
Why didn't you just have the fight at 205 and for the belt?
We never really had a conversation with Fedor dropping down to 205 because he's a heavyweight.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a little bit disrespectful. And Dan said, look, you know what? I'll come up and fight him. I don't care what weight. I'll fight him at 250. But I knew that Dan would not be fighting at 250, and Fedor really fights at 225. So that's the 220 was the compromise that Jordan Fagan felt comfortable with, and one side felt comfortable with.
Has the relationship changed at all since the purchase between you and M1? Has it made it any more tricky, difficult, anything like that?
You know what? Not really. Not really. It's still the same.
Still the same.
Yeah, they're still great guys over there.
And you also announced that on July 22nd will be the first Challengers show to happen, actually the first Strikeforce event ever in Nevada, and then all the Challengers events will be taking place at the Pearl. First and foremost, have you applied for a promoter's license in Nevada, and why did you decide that this is going to be the home of the Challengers shows?
Well, keep in mind, I mean, Strikeforce is owned by Zuffa, so they obviously have a promoter's license here already, so that's not going to be an issue.
Okay. And when I talked to them, the Nevada State Athletic Commission, they said that Strikeforce, since it is its own promotion, had to apply for one.
Okay, well then I guess we'll get on that right away.
Better get on that.
We'll get on it right away. But and the second question was again?
Why did you decide that this should be the home of all the Challengers events, beginning with July 22nd?
Well, like I said to the other reporter, we always were looking for a home for Strikeforce, and when we're traveling the country, but really we wanted to end up someplace and say, maybe do 4 events a year at this casino, 4 events a year at that casino, and the Palms wanted to do a series and really build it out. So we thought it was a great opportunity, and it's here, and all the infrastructure is here, and we'll just bring them to Vegas and have a good time.
Just a few other news and notes before we let you go. Obviously, everyone's been talking about Nick Diaz and GSP. Dana earlier this week said that it's really a tough thing to put together. There are a lot of hurdles. Is it safe to say at this point that Nick Diaz's next fight will be in Strikeforce and not against GSP?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: is that Nick Diaz is our champion, and he's going to stay our champion, and with that GSP fight, I know the fans would love to see it. I personally would love to see it. I'm sure you'd love to see it, but I think everybody has to be patient, and at some point it could happen. But for right now, there's nothing planned.
Is Woodley next for him?
You know what? Woodley has a really interesting opponent that we haven't announced yet. But
This would be a great place to announce it.
yeah, I wish I could, but I can't because when it gets inked, then we'll announce it. You know, and I'm sure you'll get the early scoop on it because I know these guys love you here. So.
Okay, final question. Chris Cyborg, your 145-pound women's champion, has been very vocal as of late that she is not feeling the love. What's going on with her?
God, we love Chris. I mean, it's it's nothing personal against her. It's just that, sometimes you're going through the contract situation and you're doing that dance, and right now that's what we're doing. So I know that we're in talks with Rudamar right now, and it's going back and forth. But hopefully we'll come to a resolution soon, and she can get back in the cage where she belongs.
So she will fight for Strikeforce again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. She's a champion.
All right. Well, good to see you, Scott.
Thanks,
we look
everyone.
forward to the next event, June 18th, Strikeforce Dallas, Overeem versus Verdum. That is the Grand Prix kicking off, as well as Gina Carano and a bunch of other fights on the card. Thank you so much for the time. Good to see you.
All right, buddy.